Alright, so this November will mark 5 years since the PlayStation 5 was first released into the wild. 5 years. Really? It's been that long? Oh god, okay. I'm gonna hold off on my existential crisis for now so we can focus on the discussion at hand here. With the 5-year anniversary coming up, one thing I have seen in the forums and comments sections is how the PlayStation 5 generation has mostly felt underwhelming. Like it never really took off. And I would have to say, I agree with this sentiment. Like a lot of you, I am used to those big generational jumps in graphics and gameplay with each new console. Like, look at what we have over here. This is a PlayStation 1 game. Now let's boot up to a PS2 game. How about a PlayStation 3 game? A PlayStation 4 game, and finally, a PlayStation 5 game. Oh, kind of just looks like the PS4 game. Huh. So what's going on here? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. Let's take a look at the PlayStation 5's first 5 years, and if it really has been a disappointing generation so far. This all started with the launch of the PlayStation 5, and what is a console without its games? Anytime a console is launching to the market, its launch games can be the difference between big sales and no sales. Sony knows this. This isn't their first rodeo after all. And with the PS5, I gotta say, they came out with a solid launch lineup. Sony's first party offerings were Spider-Man Miles Morales, Sackboy's Big Adventure, Demon's Souls Remake, and the free-to-pack in-game Astro's Playroom. And what an absolute gem of a game that is. Third-party offerings were there too, with games like Godfall. I don't know if anyone played that. Did anyone play that? And Bugsnax. Talking about Bugsnax. So yeah, I would have to give it up to the PS5 that it had a strong start with some compelling games. But this leads into one part of the PlayStation 5 that had many questioning if they truly needed to upgrade their PS4 console. You see, in previous generations, with a new console, it was very normal to see a hard line in the sand. That would be new games coming out for the new system and quickly leaving the older console behind. While there were some games created for the older gen console and the new shiny console, these were far and in between. But when we entered the PlayStation 5 generation, all of that changed. You remember those launch games I mentioned? Yeah, well, only 3 of them were technically PlayStation 5 exclusives, as all the others had PlayStation 4 editions released at launch. And I don't want to seem like I'm complaining about that. At the time, I thought it was great. Others with the PlayStation 4 could enjoy these great games, except for Demon's Souls. Sorry, y'all, you're gonna have to upgrade for that one. But this cross-generation phase for the PlayStation 5 only really began to become a point of discussion because of how long it stuck around for. Honestly, we still have games releasing for both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Sure, it has slowed down a lot by now, with most developers solely focusing on the power of these current consoles, finally. But it's because of this cross-generation release, it felt as though we were continuing to play PlayStation 4 games with just some additional features. And those features are great, I'll get to that later, but still, where was the game that when you booted it up, you would say to yourself, now this is a next-generation game? Games ran well and still looked great, but comparing the visuals to the PlayStation 4 versions, it was rarely a vast visual difference. Horizon Forbidden West being the outlier here. That is a very good looking game, and I don't think anyone could say otherwise against that. So the PlayStation 5 came out with great games, but shared many with the PlayStation 4 for a long time. Some might say too long of a time. And it left gamers wanting to see graphics be pushed and not be held back by games developed for the PlayStation 4. So what about now? Surely we have games releasing using the whole power of the PlayStation 5 and look amazing. Well, it's complicated. The games are looking good, don't get me wrong, but also some of the games are not looking good at the same time. Why is this? It's ironically all because of one thing that the PlayStation 5 has normalized and made a standard for most gamers, and that is 60 FPS gaming. Let's go back to PS3 and PS4 era. We were all gaming away at 30 FPS with not a care in the world, right? But now, if a game comes out and doesn't have a 60 FPS option, well,
then everyone loses their minds.
Developers know this and want to give us the option, but it seems we may have already hit the ceiling of what PlayStation 5 is capable of. Because of this, developers are releasing games utilizing the latest technology. You got RTGI lighting, ray-traced reflections and shadows, cloth physics. I don't know, I'm not a developer, other fancy words. The works. But it all comes at a cost, and that cost is visual clarity. I myself have seen games that look like someone took a bar of soap over my TV screen. Blurry, messy, smeary looking visuals, all to aim for that sought after 60 FPS. Games like Monster Hunter Wilds, Final Fantasy Rebirth, and Final Fantasy XVI, these are some that come to mind as not looking very appealing to the eye while using their frame rate modes. If you want to achieve a better image quality, we're right back to choosing their 30 FPS modes, or getting the beefed up PS5 Pro to improve these games. We also got Unreal Engine 5 games that, while they look amazing, usually have massive performance issues up the wazoo and will send your frame rate tanking harder than a parachute from the Looney Tunes. This isn't to say everything was bad though. We do have amazing looking games that are sharp as ever. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Spider-Man 2, Returnal, Dead Space Remake, and more recently Death Stranding 2. These games earn a big shout out for having great looking graphics while maintaining that pixel perfect sharpness. Graphics out of the way, this generation has also seen some turbulent times. It was in these last 5 years that it was announced that Sony was going all in on live service games with, what was it, 12 games to be released? Something ridiculous like that. But of course we all know by now that isn't happening, and for good reason. Thank you for falling on that sword, Concord. You will not be forgotten. Also not missed. This push for the live service genre still did its damage though, with Naughty Dog spending years of development on an online The Last of Us game, which was also probably the only live service game I would have loved to see. But it's still that years spent on a game that won't see the light of day and could have been put towards a single player project we could have seen sooner. This also did damage to Bluepoint Games, as it came out that they were working on some live service game too before Sony pulled the plug. And I gotta say, this one hurt. I'm pretty sure it was Bluepoint's decision to work on the live service project. I don't know, I'm not really sure, but all this means is that it's gonna be a very, very long time before we see a new single player game from them, and as someone who loves their remakes and their games, that just makes me really sad. Now, another thing we are used to seeing from console generations of past is the good old price depreciation. Depreciation? I think I'm saying that weird. Anyways, if you can't afford the new console, no worries. Just wait a year or two and the console will become more affordable. So I bet you all couldn't wait for the PS5 to go down in price. What's that? Oh, it's actually gone up in price? Oh, it just had a recent price increase in the US? Amazing! This is definitely more a reality of the economic world we live in today, as absolutely everything is getting more expensive. So I don't directly blame Sony for this one, but still, this is the first time as a gamer I've ever seen the console get more expensive during its life on the shelves. Will we ever see a price drop for the PS5? I'm not really sure. What do you guys think? Now look, I know we have covered a lot of bad in this video, and it makes looking at the PlayStation 5 generation kind of depressing, but I want to end this discussion with the good, because I believe there is a lot of it that can be pulled from this generation, even amongst all the bad. First off, it should not be taken lightly how great it has been to have SSD loading in video games. These fast load times are a game changer, and if you don't believe me, go back to a PlayStation 3 or PS4 game, boot it up. You can prepare a 3-course meal while you wait. The PlayStation 5 also introduced us to higher frame rates. I mentioned games running at 60 FPS and how us gamers demand it at this point. That is because the PS5 generation has conditioned us, and we have set that bar as the standard. Games at a smooth 60 FPS and even some at 120 FPS is downright amazing. I myself now struggle to play games at 30 FPS, and I finally understand all those PC gamers who refuse to play games below a certain frame rate. And while the cross-generation period was a headache, I do love that we got upgraded versions for a lot of PlayStation 4 games, unlocking their frame rates to 60 FPS and increasing their resolutions to experience the best versions of these games. A lot of these were free updates to boot, which was one of my favorite things about the PlayStation 5 in the early days. We also have had incredible current generation PS5 games, and looking into 2025 and 2026 with games like Hell Is Us, Chronos, Silent Hill F, Ghosts of Yotei, Resident Evil 9, Phantom Blade Zero. There's another big game coming out in 2026. I can't remember the name of it. Grand Theft Potato 6? I don't know. You guys will have to look it up. But there's another big game coming out, I think, that everyone's excited for. But I think it's fair to say that we will be eating good. Overall, I have been satisfied with the PlayStation 5, but I understand the sentiment that this has been a largely disappointing generation, feeling as though it took too long for it to find its stride. And with most consoles rotating a 7 to 8 year life cycle, it's hard to believe we're already on the tail end of this generation. And looking onward to PlayStation 6, the state of gaming has changed so much. It may never be as it was back in previous generations. And maybe that's why this one has felt so different. We're at a turning point in the video game industry. A fork in the road, if you will. And I think as gamers, it's up to us to voice our reason and let the big video game companies know which road they should take. So what are your thoughts on PlayStation 5, everyone? I want to discuss it all in the comments. Do you feel the PS4 held it back? Or do you think the PlayStation 5 has been great and you wouldn't change a thing? Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider a like and subscribe to help the channel grow. It's a great way to show your support. I'd certainly appreciate it. I hope you all take care, and as always, happy gaming.